Funding for nonprofits is changing. Community needs are growing, and NGOs are being asked to do more with less. Welcome to the Change Makers Junction, where ideas meet action. The podcast exploring how we can build sustainable organizations across Africa. Join us for this episode as we rethink the future of organizational sustainability. Hi, and welcome to the Change Makers Junction. This is a space where we are discussing civil society, its leadership, its posture, its continuity, and the different challenges that CSOs face. So we've been talking about sustainability, and over the few episodes that we've had, Dr. Tendai, we've covered the crisis that currently NGOs, CSOs are in the valley. Why? Because there's a funding crisis, also there's a legal crisis, right? And so as we move forward with our conversation, is it safe to say that maybe we are in this crisis because people don't understand the importance of CSOs?
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for having me. I sort of lean towards the fact that when we're thinking about this, an existential crisis of civil society, I think it's mostly because we actually don't know what civil society does. Because if you just do a survey and ask around, the most recognizable brands are your for-profits, right?
Right, yeah.
You know the mobile telephone company in your country, you know the beverage company, you know the sausage company, you know all this, but you don't know the organization that is fighting GBV. You don't know its name. You don't even know its logo. You can't recognize it. You don't know the organization that is fighting for constitutional reform. Except if you are engaged and you read newspapers, but we also understand that newspapers are not being read as widely as they used to be. So if you go to many non-profit organizations, civil society organizations, they are not active on social media. Their websites are rarely renewed. And they're just not part and parcel of the conversation. And in many instances, like in our instance in Zimbabwe and other struggling democracies, we already put a label on these organizations to say, oh, these are foreign-funded agents, these are dogs of imperialism, agents of regime change. So people think, and I find that very interesting, people within NGOs think that just rhetoric or that is just, what you just say to call out others, right? But it does something to people. Some people actually believe that because it comes out in the newspapers quite a lot. Then people begin to believe it, to say, you work for an NGO, so you are probably an agent of a regime change. But I put it back again on NGOs themselves to say, what is the story that you've told and how consistently have you told that story? So for instance, we know that if you're talking about child marriage in Malawi, that battle has been fought and most of the work has been done by NGOs. Yeah, it has taken them a decade plus working with traditional leaders, etc., to bring the bill to parliament, to have it passed as an act, and to actually begin to go into homes and take children that had been married underage and take them back to school. NGOs have financed that. But if you're not a student of NGO work, you may not know that. It's a big problem in our society, child marriages, not only in Malawi, in Zimbabwe too. So when you look at organizations that are actually currently working at the front lines of change around that problem, it's NGOs, but we don't talk about it. We celebrate for profits, for making their own profits, not for helping society. So I think what I'm trying to really put across is this crisis is partly also has to do with us because we have not made ourselves indispensable to society. We have not made our work be the work that captures the front page of a newspaper. Yeah? When a company hits a listed company hits $1 billion, it's a headline. But when an NGO saves 100 children, it doesn't hit the headline. It could be on page 4 as a small thing because the minister was there to cut the ribbon. But really, is there a story about NGOs on their own? And even us as NGOs, we've not even tried to create our own media channels. So we bank upon for-profit focused media. So that's the challenge we have, that the story is not told. I could go on and on about different areas where NGOs have made significant changes, but people don't know.
So I think we are in a season where we need to shout it from the rooftop. But as we worked on the We Are One Fund, which is part of an initiative that we do, when you spoke about child marriages, it really reminded me the amount of work we had to put in to tell the story.
Yeah.
And I will also add that it's such an expensive thing to tell your story out there.
Yeah.
And I'm not negating the idea that there's social media, which is a quote unquote free.
Yeah.
Your Instagram's, Facebook. I'll give you an example of one of the challenges that we faced.
Yeah.
So we wanted to use a billboard as one of our advertising awareness raising tools. One company, I won't mention the name, had rented that billboard for 2 years.
Exactly.
And that was going for about $400 for 2 weeks. So you can imagine how much money they are putting into telling their story.
Yeah.
And that also speaks into us as nonprofits. We need to find a way, because we are dealing with issues. We're not going to spend as much money as for-profit companies. How do we find innovative ways to shout it from the rooftop? Any ideas that you might have?
Yeah, well, I'll backtrack a bit to explain this, and I'll use an event that was related to We Are One. So for instance, when we had an opportunity to talk to corporate leaders, were in the room and the majority were male, and we began to give them stats around the number of people that the adult rep clinic attends to daily, weekly, monthly. Across the room, they were astounded because they didn't realize that we are sitting on this crisis, that Zimbabwe is a country that is prone to rape. Yeah? Is a country that our statistics match or are worse than those in South Africa. But because not even talking about your story as an organization to say, oh, you're a badass, you do this, etc., but just to really put the problem in a way that people understand and they can invest in helping solve it.
Right.
So we were in that room and we were talking about rape. Then we started talking about violence, the actual number of cases of women who are beaten up, etc., and the number of women who have experienced GBV in Zimbabwe, 1 in 3, something like that. And many corporate leaders in the room were surprised. So it tells me something that say, we are probably preaching to the converted. Because when we have our workshops, it's mostly fellow NGO practitioners, maybe with government people, etc. But we never go to wider society to really deal with the issues. And yet we're dealing with public problems. We're dealing with very wicked problems. So back to your question now to say, how do we talk about it? I'm not a comms specialist, but I think what has happened with digital transformation is that communication everyone has become a journalist. Communication has become highly democratized. You can be a journalist by just using a smartphone. You can use whatever. So I think we need to think outside of cost, because you mentioned the prohibitive cost around a billboard. I totally get that. I understand it. But we have to think around what else can we do So if you really ask yourself right now to say, where are Gen Zs and millennials? They're on their screens. What are they watching? TikTok videos. What are they watching? Maybe Facebook. A few of them, the millennials maybe. They're on X, etc. What is our content on those spaces? Because that's my question to say, when I go to TikTok, how much content is being generated by us to tell our story so that we can justify our existence? Because that's what is missing in the sustainability equation. We are mourning for a sector that people don't understand is important.
Right.
So for many people, it's not news that organization X is facing a funding problem. Even if it dies, they don't see it because they never understood its role. So we wake up after the fact to say, oh, how come this is not happening? Then we're being told, oh, there was an organization that used to do this work, but because of funding challenges, it has had to close down. But people were not even aware that the organization existed. Because what we do, and we're good at this, we get into a space, we put our heads together, we work on the problem.
Right.
We work on the problem of homeless children, we work on the problem of child marriages, and we don't tell the world how many children we've saved from child marriages. We don't tell the world of the advocacy we're doing around laws. It's only when change happens then. And also another thing, which has become a weakness. We report to our donors. We don't report to the community. Right. So most of our reporting is vertical, back to the donors, to say, of the amount you gave us, we did 1, 2, 3, and we did it successfully. And the donors always ask, I used to be in a funding organization, how well known is your story? Do you understand? Because when we read the report that has been written, we can see how compelling the change is. But half the time, we're so seized with reporting because that's where the next funding comes from, or we are reporting to 8 different organizations.
I just want to chime in there when you're talking about reporting. So we did a training for some organizations around communication when we were starting the We Are One Fund. It was so interesting to note that, as you said, they report to donors, and when they engage with communities, it's more of, we deliver this service. And now, because they have to change the way that they're telling their story, linking it to sustainability around individual giving. If we are to tell the story of, to save a child from child marriage costs this much.
Exactly.
I am telling the story of, this is how much it's going to cost. This is what we've done so far with the money that we had. We're going through a crisis. We need you to jump in. But if we don't know you, we don't know your story, we don't know what you've been able to do, that sustainability component when it comes to individual giving becomes a challenge.
And yet, if you look at corporates will exaggerate how great they are. They sell us Majat products, but they'll still be able to say they're the greatest thing after sliced bread, right? And we believe it. We go and buy the next product. But we have not invested in, I'm not saying we should exaggerate our work or lie about what we do, but the good work, we're a force for good. Literally, we're a force for good. We wake up seized with the idea, how are we going to serve the world? How are we going to keep the lights on for our organization? That's what preoccupies many leaders in the nonprofit space. But yet they don't get the credit for it. Right. The organizations they lead can die and people go on. So I think we really need to begin to think, if it's about budgets, or rather we create the budgets. We retrain our comms, was our comms departments, and I'm sorry to all communication colleagues who are watching this, our comms departments need to also begin to bring some force, some oomph, some creativity around what they do, play around with platforms, make sure that we're engaging the people that have not been engaged before. Because what I've learned in the journey towards the GBV work and building sustainability and also trying just to make sure that individuals can give is that if your story is not known, no one has time for you. So you have to make sure that your story is known. And half the time, we are doing great work, but no one ever knows what we've done because we don't tell the story. We don't invest in storytelling. We invest in reporting. So that has to change. I think that's the most important thing. And also, if you really take advantage of the changes that have happened in tech, and if you look at the numbers, the number of digitally connected people here, we can learn even from churches.
Right.
You know, churches are doing a better job than most nonprofits.
That is true.
Yeah, churches are able to get numbers on their live broadcasts on Sundays. Their followers, they use WhatsApp channels, they use stuff. Nonprofits are struggling. They're not doing any of this. So I think we need to get out of complaining mode and to begin to say, what can we do differently? Because the crisis moment that we're in is challenging us to rethink the model, really rethink, abandon certain things and move on. Because I think another challenge that had crept in, we're now comfortable in our cocoons. We've become so comfortable because funders come and give us a budget for 2 years. Why bother talk to people? Let's just do the work. Then when we're done, we write for another proposal. But if we're going to be working with corporates want something that amplifies their brand.
Right.
So if they give you money, they want to see what exactly have they done with the money. So the value for money. So I think some corporates would be able to knock on your door as a nonprofit if they can see that, oh, there's compelling work here, it aligns with our values, etc. But I'm yet to see many of our nonprofits being corporate pursued. I always talk about this thing of saying your sweet spot is when donors, including corporates, are pursuing you instead of you pursuing them. Yeah. So people can only pursue you if they know your story. In the absence of a credible story, no one will know you, so how would they pursue you? So I think that's very important for us to say, put it out there, let people know, let's get the testimonials from people who are benefiting from our work, if it be girls, if it be women, if it be young youths that are being saved from drugs. Let's get those testimonials as part and parcel of the communication package.
Right. You said something that stuck with me. If you don't tell your story, if people don't know your story, they don't have time for you.
Yeah.
So as we encourage you to be a change maker who has a story. If you haven't taken time to invest in telling your story, communicating what you do, why your work is important, this is a crucial time to do so. As we shut it down to Tendai, any parting shots there?
Yeah, so there were two things. In the previous episode, we talked about valleys as places where we find ourselves as a valley. But I always tell people that the valley is a very fertile ground. Valleys are associated with fertile. So it's a place of imagination. That's the fertile ground. You can start thinking through what you need to change, etc. And communication, for me, is part of the valley experience. We really need to harness communication because of all things, no matter how brilliant you are at writing proposals, the situation we're entering is not going to be a situation whereby there's somebody sitting with a pot of money waiting for a brilliant proposal. The situation we're in is going to be a place whereby you're going to convince somebody who was going somewhere else to say, can you take a left turn and look at what we're doing and fund us? Because what we're beginning to get is we're getting opportunistic funding that responds to how you've communicated. Say, you know what, this caught my attention and I thought I would invest in it. Because that's what we need to be doing so that we can catch the attention of corporates, high net worth individuals, new funders, etc., and even individuals. So we have to find ways of saying, how do we create compelling content that is rooted in authentic realities? And that is actually contributing towards, I don't like this word, but let me use it, impactful change. Thank you.
Invest in your story is the bottom line of our conversation today. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Tendai.
Happy to be here. It's quite comfortable on the couches. I love it.
Very, very, very comfortable. And so thank you for joining us today. Here we are making change makers. We hope to see you in our next episode. Goodbye for now. That's it for this episode of Change Makers Junction, where ideas meet action. For more sharp conversations on NGO sustainability and organizational resilience, subscribe to Change Makers Junction on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Share this episode, keep the conversation going, and join us next time as we turn ideas into action.